Good morning. Boy, that woke me up. Something had to. Good morning. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. Happy Thursday morning. You know what? One day closer to Friday. I'm not sure if I've did a weekend more than today. Good morning, Allison. Good morning, Jay. That is a beautiful flag, isn't it? I have never seen a flag that big on the back of a vehicle. I'm not even sure if I've ever seen a flag that big, but I would like to have one. I put that on the back of my Jeep and drive around town. And I had for a while there. I had flags, flag decals on my Jeep, and a Trump sticker and some other things. When I was down in Georgia, I felt like having all of that Trump signs all over my car protected my life a little bit because when I was in Georgia, I was going to all these different roads and to these different homes, down through every single crack and crevice around the mountainside up in the Blue Ridge Mountains, which can be a very dangerous thing to do because there's some of these little areas, they call them hollers, where you go and you drive and no one has ever been there before. They're not used to strangers pulling up to their homes. And a couple people warned me. They're like, you need to be careful. And I thought, well, everyone in Georgia is a big Trump supporter. So I put all my signs on the Jeep thinking, well, at least they'll see that and they'll know I'm a friendly. A couple people did tell me, well, they were waiting to see, what exactly I had to say before they reacted. And thankfully, 99.9% of the time, everyone was friendly once they knew I was there to support our beloved Donald Trump. But I took them off because you know what? Right now, if you have Trump flags, Trump bumper stickers, or anything MAGA related, you are definitely going to be a target. It's unfortunate that that's the case, but it will cause you to be a target. And I'll probably eventually put them back up. The flags are fine. But it's sad to say that these days, if you have a flag on your vehicle, then all of a sudden you become a target. Now, how is that possible? That here in America, having a flag on your vehicle makes you a target. That's absolutely insane. Good morning, Tammy Jerry Hoover. I don't know about you guys, but man, I almost overslept this morning, which I'm not sure if that's maybe ever happened to me, at least not the past several years, where I got home late. I normally turn my alarm on and I didn't because I'm always wide awake. I usually wake up at 3:30, 4 o'clock, even if my alarm is set, let's say for 5:30 or 6. And I guess I forgot to set it last night. And then I woke up this morning at 6:30 and I was so tired. I thought, I don't think I can get up this morning and do a show or do anything. I just need to go back to bed. But here I am. I got up and got moving. But man, I'm slow going today. It's very slow going. These are the days you wish you had a co-host so they could talk and I could just kind of sit over here and doze out for the day. Good morning, Jay, but I am happy to see you all this morning. Jay says, because there is a mental health problem in this country, there is, we unfortunately face a lot of problems in our country today, and it's really unfortunate. And mental health plays into that a lot. Now, I don't know what you guys think, but I feel like that we are getting to a point where we're seeing a big increase in mental health issues. And I don't know if that's our food poisoning people, if it's all of these different shots we're giving to people, if it is media manipulation, or if for younger people, if it's what they're hearing or seeing, in the schools or what's on television. I don't know. I can't really get to the bottom of what is causing all of the anguish that's taking place. Good morning, Laura. Good morning, Annette. And I have faced it in my own family. I have a couple nieces and nephews. I don't have many, but two of them are facing some different. But it does. You have, especially when it comes to the public schools, and you have kids in public schools, and they are absolutely being influenced in the schools. And I'm not gonna, it's like I want to tell you guys what's going on, but I don't want to, offend anyone in my family. But one of a family member of mine, a young family member, somebody who's just a child, is really being pressured in school. And They have thoughts that they shouldn't have. They're acting out in ways they shouldn't act out. And you hear a lot about it is mental illness, where they think they're an animal or something along those lines. And that's happening distantly in my family, not here in my house, but it's a worry, and you think, well, how did this person become this way? They're just a child. And then you have to think, well, who influences children the most? That's going to happen in the schools, isn't it? Or home, depending on the kid. It certainly in the home. In this case, it's not the home. So I know it's the school. And but it is a worry. And I feel for parents, I feel for family members who are facing with other family members who have mental illness. And I think every family probably has some things going on where they're thinking, okay, whether it's a cousin or, an elderly family member or a child that has something crazy going on in their lives right now. And I feel like it's just those issues are growing. Good morning, Dottie. Good morning, Kim. And Allison says it's a combination of those issues. And it could be, but I'll tell you, I worry for society. I worry for our children and what they're going through. When I was a kid, things were very different. Very, very different. And I feel like I'm so lucky to have grown up in the 80s. I don't know if there's a better era, although I know every person says their era was the best. I guess that's just how you feel. But, things are so strange right now. I mean, they're so strange. Growing up in the 80s, we would get up as kids, we'd go out, ride our bikes all over town, further probably than our parents would have been comfortable with us riding. I'd leave in the morning. I would ride my bike around all day long. I might check in the house here and there, but usually I was pretty darn far away. So coming back and checking in the house wasn't quite as easy. And I was, of course, in the Chicago suburbs, which are very expansive. The neighborhoods never end. And, I would be all over the place. And, you come home, you're outside. We played, hide and go seek and flashlight tag and all these different things. And never once when I went to school or with my friends did sexuality ever come up. Not even once. Not at any point during that time did anyone talk about violence. I don't remember, being in school and any violence occurring. I know being in the Chicago area, even back then in the 80s, there was gang violence. We had a couple of big gangs back in the beginning of gang activity in the Chicago area. And every once in a while, there'd be a fight that would break out, out in the parking lot that was gang related. But outside of that, nothing ever happened. Things were just, I think, pretty darn normal. I don't recall any of our teachers ever talking about their personal lives. I had no idea. I think maybe I would have known if they were married or not married, but no idea about their political beliefs, no idea about their sexuality, no idea about anything because you kids don't need to know those things. And that's what's so different now. Everybody thinks, oh, they have to be honest and they have to be upfront and they have to tell all their kids about who they are and why they are that way. And it's just all this emotional overload. It's just I don't understand why teachers feel the need to talk about their personal lives to the children in school or to bring pride flags into the school. And I know Donald Trump, I know he instituted, an executive order, no flags at our government buildings. I don't know about schools. I need to check into that because there's a lot of different types of flags in school, not just LGBTQ, but also BLM and other flags. Trust me, there's a lot of different flags out there that represent different types of people. And I don't feel that any of those flags should be in the school. And why? Because children don't need to be subjected to all of this information coming in. It's just sensory overload. How about that? Sensory overload is how I see it. And Jay says, no repercussions. Every feeling is valid. No one wins or loses. We all win, right? Kids are supposed to equip to deal with the world in a healthy way. And they're not, and unfortunately, kids are not learning to deal with it in a healthy way. And Annette says she grew up in the 70s and a teenager in the 80s. Great times. And yeah, and Dottie says we respected adults. Yes, we did. Our elders, as they called it, you did. You respected your parents, you respected your teachers, you respected, people in your community. No way. If I would have been walking around the block, which I did a lot, as a kid or a teenager, and there was an adult, that spoke to me, of course, you're always, yes, sir, ma'am, very respectful. And these days, people are offended if you say sir or ma'am. And even with me at work, it's kind of funny. At work, I deal with a lot of people. I work in security and anti-piracy, and I'm, dealing with hundreds of people every single day when I'm working. And so it's hard sometimes because I'm used to addressing people as ladies. Women come towards me and said, "Oh, hey, ladies, this is the door you're going into," or whatever, I might be working on, or "Hey, guys, whatever." But now I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what to say. So I felt face that the other day at working a screening. I'm like, man, I'm going to get yelled at if I say, "Hey, ladies," or "Hi, guys." So it's like it's hard to reprogram your mind to just not say anything. But things are different. And I think a lot of families are feeling the repercussions of and I can't call all of it mental illness, just the repercussions of their children being influenced by other people, and particularly when it comes to sexuality and identity. Because I know when I was in school, if ever there was a time that I thought I was an animal, and trust me, there's a lot of different animals going around in schools right now. It used to be just cats. Now there's foxes and there's dogs and I don't probably other animals. I don't even know. But but we hadn't talked about it in a while, and I think people don't see it as such a pressing issue anymore. But it's actually growing. That problem is growing. It's not getting worse. It's growing, and I don't understand it. At any point, if I would have went to school, let's say when I was 13 or 14 years old, and told my teachers, and I came in wearing a tail of some kind of animal, maybe some ears of an animal, and I know I'm laughing about it, but it is a problem. And I wanted to be spoken to like an animal and be treated like the animal I'd identify with. I would have been immediately sent to a psychiatrist. That's what would have happened when I was in school. And my parents would have been called. They would have to come up to the school. They would have to explain why I'm allowed at home to feel like I'm an animal, whatever animal that might be. And then they would call the whatever is it called, CCP, whoever the services are you call when children are being neglected or abused at home. Because back then in the 80s, if you were coming to school looking like an animal, acting like an animal, you would probably be taken away from your parents. There would be a file written up. People would be coming to your home wondering, why is this happening to your kid? What gives them the idea that they can come to school and act this way? And then you would be facing some very serious trouble in school as well. But not these days. Everything's different now. If a kid comes to school right now, they're taught that they can choose their identity, that they can choose their sexuality. It's all up to them. And what's funny about that is a couple of the gay people I know messaged me yesterday. They were listening to the show, not live, but later on caught up. And they're like, you know what? I'm glad you said, that a lot of us people who are gay or, belong in the LGBTQ community, we also don't agree, with all of these crazy things that are happening in schools. Because if you talk to people, they'll say, well, I was born this way. When I went to school, they didn't have to talk to me about my identity, just like a heterosexual person, because this is the way I already was. I already knew I was this way. There was no choosing identity. And one of my young family members is struggling with that kind of situation where they've told them that, hey, you can choose to be whatever you want to be. Just because you're a boy, you don't have to be a boy. You can be a girl. You don't have to choose that you just want to be monogamous with one person. You can actually choose to be, there's a lot of different terms they call, and I don't know the exact term I'm looking for here, but you can choose to be someone who likes boys and girls. And it's not bisexual, it's something else. And so it's like, what in the world is happening in our public schools? What is happening to where kids have these choices? And when I was in school, I don't know about you guys, but when I was in school and you take sexual education, It was the basics, the very basics. I mean, they told us the tiniest amount that they would need to tell you to possibly understand how the reproductive system works. We didn't talk about any of this other stuff. And if at any point any of our health counselors, I can't remember what they were called, I mean, I don't even know. I don't even remember what class that was in where we talked about these things. If at any point they would have said, well, guess what? You get to choose your identity. Do you feel like a girl today or a boy today? How are you feeling? Do you feel like you want to have relationships with one sex or both sex? Or these days, there's like, what are there, 10 of them? Any of these people. And at no point did any of those conversations happen. But I can only imagine that if they did happen, if that would have been put to me as a kid, the confusion in my head would have been overwhelming to me. I would have thought, gosh, it wouldn't have probably made me think, but it would probably make a lot of kids think, oh, I didn't know there was a choice. It's not healthy. It's not healthy at all. And sorry to be going on about it, but it's concerning because it's happening in a lot of families to a lot of different people. And I'm bringing this up because there was another school shooting yesterday. And good morning, Karen. And Allison says maybe they should be dropped off at the zoo. Dottie says health class. Thank you, Dottie. But we didn't. Do we have a health? I don't even remember. Was there a health class? I guess there was. I'm so old. I don't remember school that much. And good morning, Joe. And so, anyway, I could go on about that forever. I'm going to be probably coughing a lot today. So I'll apologize in advance. I cannot breathe out of my nose. So if I sound nasally, that's probably why. I don't know. I'm just going through this phase of really bad allergies. I just can't seem to get past it. I've been taking allergy medicine and it's not helping at all. And I'm actually going to start taking steroids today, which I really don't want to take, but I've got to do something for these allergies because the allergies are winning the battle. Let's put it that way. It's like every morning on the show, I'm like struggling not to cough, not to sneeze. Today is going to be probably one of the worst days. So I'm going to just apologize now. But yeah, yesterday there was another school shooting. Of course, everyone's jumping around saying, oh, Donald Trump, it's his fault because, he's promoting all of this different stuff. I don't yet know. The school shooting was in Nashville. The shooter was a male, and I don't know all of the details, but he came to school with a weapon. He shot 2 students. The female student did pass away. The male student is still in the hospital in, serious condition. And I don't know what happened in that situation with the kids. I don't know why the shooter did what he did. I don't know what was behind it. And last I looked, no motivation had been released. But we're going to see more school shootings. We're going to see more school shootings. And I hate to say that, and I hate to think about it, but it is true. And I'm not saying that this school shooting in Nashville was Donald Trump's fault or that any shooting would ever be Donald Trump's fault. There were plenty of school shootings in the Biden administration. There were school shootings in the Obama administration. It's not necessarily the president's fault. Now, I could blame it on Democrats because they are the ones who are putting all this junk in kids' heads, causing them to feel overwhelmed and where they have nowhere to turn. And now all of a sudden, some kids are going to be going through more because now there are kids out there who feel like they identify as XYZ, whatever it might be. And they're told, nope, you're a boy or a girl. And I know that's sending and it should be this way. I agree with Donald Trump. I wholeheartedly agree with Donald Trump. But I also know that there's some kids out there who are on the edge. And it's the school's fault. Sometimes it's the parents' fault. It was the Democrat regime's fault to allow kids to have all of these different thoughts, to give them all of these different choices. And now they don't know what to do. They're like, okay, well, I did identify as a blah, 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 whatever, because I don't know all the terms. And now all of a sudden I'm just a girl or I'm just a boy and I cannot act out freely who I feel like I am. And we already know there have been school shootings already that these kids have committed, because they are already confused. They don't know or understand their identity. Remember the last time there was a school shooting in the Nashville area, and it was a situation where it was a female shooter. Remember that? And she was attending a Christian school who was trying to counsel her to tell her that she was a specific gender and it wasn't open for discussion. And so, therefore, of course, she allowed her violence to take over her mind and perpetuated the school shooting. And it's sad to say, but I do think we're going to see more school shootings. I said this yesterday. We're going to see situations where we're going to have more law enforcement officers injured and killed. And, as you guys already know, ICE is, underway. They have raids going on all across the country yesterday and today. And Dottie said you thought the filtration in your old house helped you. It did. And maybe I need to get one for the new house. It's a little more complicated here because there's 3 different furnaces at this house. So I guess I would have to get 3 different units, maybe. I don't really know how that works. But if you're ever thinking, if you have allergies like me, where like today I'm really struggling. I struggle with my allergies in the morning, then they get a little bit better as the day moves on. And I don't have them every day all the time. It's my allergies are in the fall and in the winter. In the spring and summer I'm perfectly fine usually. But I also have sinus issues, which doesn't help. So a whole house filtration system will absolutely get rid of a lot of your allergy symptoms. And I'm actually, yesterday I was online looking for just a filtration system for my room, like just so I can at least sleep with some filtered air. And so thank you for bringing that up, Dottie. I did love my filtration system by Chesterfield Services, by the way. And you were also suffering by allergies. Definitely call those folks. They've got some good systems. Jay says the media has sensationalized school shootings. And this has opened the door to other kids doing this because they know it draws more attention. Yes, Jay, a lot of times it is about attention. A lot of times kids want people to understand how they feel. And if they feel no one's listening to them, they feel like they have to go out and commit this big act of violence to make sure people do listen. Some of them want the notoriety of it. In my case, the family member I have that I was discussing that I'm a little bit concerned with, they feel violent, and I need to be careful again what I say. I don't want to upset anyone, but they're, I understand how these kids are feeling because this family member feels violent and it scares me, because I don't know, they don't live in this area, by the way, but it does worry me because I think, I don't have anything to do with their parenting, but I hope that their parent is keeping an eye on them and, and getting them the help they need. And they are, as far as I know, but that can't be said for all of these kids. We're living in some tough times for our children, tough times for ourselves, tough times for our country. And we're going to go through this period where things are going to seem really bad. And then they're going to get far better. It's like you have to go. I feel like it as you have to go over the mountainous terrain, swim through the rivers, the treacherous rivers, before you reach utopia. And that's how I feel where we are right now. We're climbing over the mountains, swimming through the rivers, but on the other side of all that is the utopia. We're almost there. The hardest part, quite honestly, is over. We're almost there. Good morning, Karen. And let's see here. Jay says, can ICE deport Mayor Johnson and Pritzker while they're at it? Yes, let's hope so. I would be very happy about that. And Kim says, and the Dems are losing their minds on the immigration issue and Trump's pardons for J6ers. And Jay says TDS is still rampant. And Kim, to your point, yes, you are absolutely correct. And they've come up with a new plan. It used to be, remember, they had the 30-year agenda. Well, now they've extended it. This is kind of funny. It used to be, remember, they wanted all of this stuff done by the year 2035. Well, now they've switched it to 2050. So now all of a sudden, Soros and all of his little buddies, all the folks that meet over in Davos, they're all saying, oh, well, yes, we're not going to meet our goals by 2035, but hey, we will meet these same goals by 2050. They have not given up. They're never going to give up. They're still talking about climate change. They're still talking about electric vehicles and making sure we have an electric home and no gasoline or no natural gas, I should say. They're not going to give up on their plan. Trust me. They've just extended a little bit. But that just goes to show how effective Donald Trump is in their plans. And as for the immigration, ICE is conducting raids. They're actually part of a multi-jurisdictional task force. So it's ICE assisted by FBI, by U.S. Marshal Service, by the DHS, by DEA, and these multi agency task forces are going out and they are conducting raids. It's happening yesterday, already happening this morning. I saw some posts where they're very active in Boston already today. It's early, but they're uh, an hour later than us here in the Central Time Zone, and they're already conducting raids. I know there were hundreds of people arrested yesterday. The first wave of illegals being rounded up are the violent criminals. So they are targeting people who have committed violent acts of crime, murderers, rapists. They're tackling pedophiles, people who have been caught with child pornography, and that type of thing. So the very first round, and it's going to take a while to round up all of the violent offenders. And once they, have finished with the violent offenders, which is going to take a long time, then they're going to start on other groups of people. And let's see here. Sorry, I missed something that I want to go back and see because I saw something, a comment that I didn't. It's hard sometimes for me to backtrack. Jay says, I've seen the left saying Trump pardoned 600 cop killers, and you're talking about the J6ers. People have lost their mind over the J6ers as well, and which is crazy. A lot of these. Good morning, Rob. A lot of these people, Democrats, saying, well, if they're in our jails, we're refusing. We're not going to release them. And Donald Trump says, okay, if you don't release the J6ers that I've pardoned, well, guess what? I'm going to hold you criminally liable. You're going to face prosecution. And the same thing is going on with these ICE raids. As you've probably already heard, we have 10,000 troops. Now, of course, these are reservists, 10,000 troops heading to our southern border. The southern border is closed. I guess you guys heard this. The southern border is closed. We are closed for business. No one is coming into the United States. No one. The legal ports of entry are closed. Now, if you're an American and you're in Mexico, or if you're somebody who is of course, an American citizen, you can still come through. But anyone seeking asylum, the borders are closed. No one's coming in, not legally and not illegally, neither way. But as Colonel Joe Adams said yesterday, we're still going to have people sneaking across our southern border because we just don't have the manpower to watch every inch. And just like Colonel Joe Adams said of the Washington Guard yesterday, the only way to prevent all illegal entry is to stand almost, arm in arm distance from each other all the way across the border. And there's some very difficult terrain on our southern border that makes it very difficult, to have manpower there. But people who want to get across bad enough will still go through that very difficult terrain and come into our country. And so Dottie says she wonders about the flights. Yeah, the flights I think are safe. We don't, even though we have had illegals flying on airplanes who don't even have to present an identification, they just have a piece of paper. They're not coming in either. No one's coming in. Allison says state prisons are refusing to release J6ers. They will send U.S. Marshals to get them out. Yeah, that's already happening. U.S. Marshals are already being deployed. And let's see, you like how Holman says they will prosecute anyone who interferes or tries to impede ICE. Yes, that was a big topic. Last night I was reading about where Donald Trump and, of course, Tom Homan, they said, they've also said, if you house someone, so let's say that you live in a home and someone who is here in this country illegally is living in your home and you don't cooperate with ICE or with these multi-jurisdictional task forces, you yourself, you're going to face criminal charges. You're going to be prosecuted. And right now, again, they're just rounding up the violent criminals, but they want to make sure people know that you cannot protect the violent criminals. We are going to deport these people. All the violent people or people who are thought to have a criminal past who are currently in detention, they're being deported also. And it's not just people going across, it's not just about our southern border either. I know India said they're going to take 18,000 Indian nationals that are here in the United States illegally. Many of them have overstayed their visa, but they're going to be going back to India. So there's people that were going to be leaving this country, going back to a lot of different places. Because I really want to stress this isn't as much about Mexico. Most of the people who are here who are committing these crimes are not the Mexican people. They're people who have come up from El Salvador or, different parts of Central America, Guatemala, and so on. They make their way up through the corridor and into our country. And, oh yeah, Nancy says Fauci pardon. Yeah, which is really crazy. That's another story. But Fauci being pardoned is absolutely insane. But that goes back to the bio labs. That's not about COVID. I mean, it may be part of COVID, but Fauci and a lot of the other people, people say, oh, well, it's part of this, it's part of that. Some of it was about the J6ers, but a lot of it was about Ukraine. And that's why the dates go back to 2014, because that's when the biolabs and the organ harvesting and all of that stuff started in Ukraine. And that's what Fauci, of course, is part of. His part of it goes back to 2014 because it's over what was taking place with the NIH and the biolabs over in Ukraine. And by the way, I do have that video of Barron Trump today speaking to Joe Biden. So we're going to play that here shortly. Jay says churches and other buildings not exempt. ICE can enter. Yeah, and I was watching a video this morning in Arizona, and there were parents who were very concerned. And I have to say that this never crossed my mind before, but these parents said that there are people who are in our country illegally teaching in schools in parts of Arizona, and they were concerned that ICE is going to come into the school and start making arrests, and how is it going to impact their children who are there learning when the ICE comes in and takes their teachers. Well, as of right now, unless their teacher is considered to be a violent criminal, then they're not going to be deported yet. Eventually they will be, but not yet. And again, I hope Trump comes up with a fast track process for people who are here in our country illegally, but being good American citizens for the most part. And I realize obviously they don't have citizenship, but they're still very much a productive part of our society. And if you're here illegally and you're working as a teacher, I would think you would be someone who could go through that type of fast track system. But there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be upset that they're going to say, oh, my children had to see this person being drug out of their home or drug out of their place of employment. It's going to happen. It's not pretty when you deport hundreds of thousands of people, potentially millions of people in the end. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be clean. There's going to be a lot of things that do happen, and not just in schools, not just in, places of business, but we also have to worry that there are, especially right now, when they're rounding up violent criminals, how far are these people willing to go to not be deported? Are they going to come knocking on your door? You're going to be outside warming up your car and they're going to come to your vehicle and carjack you? Are they going to try to come in, live in your home to not be detected? There's going to be a lot of stories in the news that are going to be very difficult to hear, very hard to understand. But desperate people do desperate things. Dottie says Russia is Fauci hunting. Yes, they are. Russia has all the secrets, and eventually we'll probably find out what they are. Jay says payments to the Biden family. Yeah, the Biden crime family for sure. Jay says, I don't understand how they hire illegals when we as citizens have to prove our citizenship to be hired. It is strange how unfair all of that is, because I know when I fly, if we go fly somewhere, what do we need? We need identification, right? We need an ID. And if you're here in this country illegally, you don't need a photo ID. You don't need anything to prove who you are. All you need a piece of paper that says you're an asylum seeker, and that's it. And that's really messed up, quite honestly. And it is, if somebody is working in this country illegally, as long as they're getting taxed and paying their taxes, that's another story. And there are some people who do that. They do issue these temporary Social Security numbers so that people can work and be taxed. I don't have as much of an issue with that. And my issue is the first round here, which is the violent criminals. And if you go on the news today, you're going to see, man, you're going to see ICE, the FBI, again, all of these different jurisdictions coming in on these task forces, and they're grabbing people, pulling them out of their homes. Some of them have resisted. That's why I said we're going to have some issues for our law enforcement, but we're doing the right thing. It may not be easy. It might be a bumpy road, but we are doing the right thing. And guess what? America knows. The world knows we're doing the right thing. There might be people who are angry about it. There might be people in these different sanctuary cities who say, we're not going to allow you to come in, ICE, and deport people. And those people are going to be criminally prosecuted. But in the meantime, the world is waking up. I don't know if you guys heard this news. Good morning, Mary. This is some of the best news I've heard, is that the dollar, believe it or not, the dollar has gone up by 5%. How many times have we talked about on this show, particularly, how the dollar is going down? Just recently, down 38, percent. It had gone down since 2014, a progressive decline, and probably even more than 38% down recently since the last study was done. And now all of a sudden it's ticked up. Since when? Since Donald Trump was elected in November. It has slowly ticked up. Now we're up 5%. I think that speaks volumes on the expectations of our future, which is why I said we're going through the phase right now where we're climbing over the rough terrain. We're swimming through the shark-infested lakes, and then we're going to reach the utopia on the other side. The S&P yesterday closed at a record high, a historical high. Why? Because Donald Trump, because he's doing great things for this country. And, the left can say whatever they want to say. The proof is going to be the dollar going up, the market's closing better. Who food prices are going to go down. Things are. And Lori says, and the biased media will have photographers there to capture it all. We will see heartbreaking photos will be spun out of control. Lori, that's already happening. It's already happening. I watched videos yesterday of people being, pulled out of their home and being arrested, taken away in handcuffs with their kids crying and screaming. But I take comfort in knowing that these are violent criminals, because the only people they're targeting right now are pornographers, violent gang members, and those are the people we need out of our country. And I hate it, that maybe they have children here, maybe they have family here. I'm sorry, but if you're committing crimes, you have to go. We have no room left for people who are committing these crimes. It's extremely unfortunate. And we have to back our law enforcement. We have to back our president in these deportations. And it's hard. I was thinking about it last night. I'm like, out of all of the Trump's executive orders, deportations are the hardest one for me, because I also have a soft spot for people being pulled away from their families. And and it is going to be very difficult when we get down to other groups of people. But I do hope that Trump, I mean, come on, Trump's a very reasonable, smart person. Once we get rid of all the violent criminals and gang members, and then the people who are living here in our country that have been here 20 years, living good lives, he's going to find a way for those people to stay. I have no doubt in my mind. He will figure it out. But it is hard to see people, being forced to leave the country. Not violent criminals. See you later. Can't wait for them all to go. But, things are going to get a little crazy before they get better. Mary says, I want confirmations done. Yes, RFK confirmation is going to be on January 29th. I can't wait for his. And yes, I hope they have to work all weekend and get it done too. And, we'll see how things play out. But, yesterday I know Colonel Adams and I talked about potentially the United States invading Mexico to, fight the cartels. Now, let's say if that happens, it's not going to be just Mexico. That we're also going to have to go to El Salvador and Guatemala and some of these other Central American countries, because most of the people coming into our country, some of them are cartels in Mexico, but a lot of these gang members, look, Tren de Aragua, they're coming from Venezuela. Venezuela won't even take these people back. I don't even know where they're going to go. We've got to round up all of these gang members, and then what? Where do we take them? So a lot of countries are refusing to take them back. Are we just going to ship them off, throw them across the other side of the border and, say, oh, here you go? We might just do that. Lori said, should have done it all the correct way. I know I would if moving to another country. That's absolutely correct, Lori. And not only that, Lori, about yes, you would do it correctly. If you thought about moving, let's say right now to another country, yes, you would go through the legal channels to move, right? And that's what all of these people should have done as well. No question about it. They're here illegally. They have committed a crime by entering our country illegally. But think about this. A lot of countries, and you guys, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, they shoot people on site when they're trying to cross their border. And I know some Afghans who were escaping when the Taliban took over. You remember when all of that took place under also Joe Biden's term. Well, the Afghans that were trying to escape, these are some young guys that I just talked to online about what was going on. And, they're young men. They had to leave their families behind. They're not wives. They were probably, 17, 18, 19 years old, leave their mothers and their sisters and brothers behind. And they had to walk some very difficult terrain to escape the Taliban because they knew if they stayed in Afghanistan, they would be forced to fight for the Taliban or they would be killed. They had no choices, so they had to leave. And they told me that, we've got to walk through the Iranian border. We've got to walk through the Turkish border. That's the only way out. We have to go through this certain path. And every time they approach our border, they worry about being shot because other countries don't play around. And maybe, I hate to say that, but maybe here in our country, we need to start thinking about better ways. Allison says, just because they have not committed violence doesn't mean they won't. We need better vetting. That's key. Anyone that comes in our country, they need to be vetted. I don't care who they are, why they say they're going to be here, man or woman, they need to be vetted. We need to know why they're here, what their intentions are. Are they going to be productive citizens? And then, you know what? Once we find out who they are, then let's fast track the process. Let's make sure they become American citizens. And then, you know what? Let's bring them into our country because we need people in our country. There are still a lot of jobs in this country and that people aren't working. And I'm not talking about farms or migrant workers or anything like that, just regular jobs. Joe says, I can't reply on people's comments anymore for some reason. Oh, well, Joe, I don't know. Anything can happen, but you're on Facebook. I would watch from X. I know that's different. You can't reply to comments necessarily there either, but it is a lot easier of a platform to use. Pam says, those other countries don't care about us. They just dump their dirt bags on us and laughed about it. I'm sure of it. You're right, Pam. You're 100% right. Look what Venezuela did. Venezuela emptied their prisons and sent all their criminals here to our country. I mean, that is exactly what they did. Their prisons were opened. All of the criminals came here to the United States illegally. And guess what? Venezuela, they have virtually no crime. And most what used to be their most dangerous cities are almost crime free now. Why? Because all their criminals are here. and that's the truth. You can look it up. And Joe says, oh, let's see. Mary says, first time I rode with friends across the border from California, I saw federale with guns along the way. My friend said, don't be afraid. Mary, a lot of people don't understand in this country that the gangs, the cartels control a lot of our highways. And, in Arizona, in Nevada, in New Mexico, they control the highways. And it's crazy to think that we've allowed it to get that far, but we have. And so, that's something that's going on today. Definitely got to keep an eye on these raids. And I didn't mean to talk about it quite this long, but, something else Trump has done is he has suspended foreign aid. We are not giving money to anyone, no one, until we can sit down at the table and figure out why are we giving this country foreign aid? What are they doing for us? How is this going to help people? We have stopped the flow. And gosh knows, we have spent so much money on the most ridiculous things in other countries. What they call foreign aid is not always meant to feed people or clothe people or to provide medical assistance. It's a lot of crazy junk. And so I'm glad that they have stopped that. And then we're going to sit down at the table. Now, Elon Musk has proposed that any time now that Congress makes these decisions where they're going to send foreign aid to another country or where they're going to create some type of legislature, that they put it out there in a document on the White House website to where all American citizens can go into the website. We can see what's on the docket, which to some degree you can already do that. but they're going to put a time limit on it where they want it out there. I think he said 10 days. I don't recall the exact day amount where it's going to be out there. You can go out, you can look at it, you can see what type of aid we're going to be sending out, you can see what type of programs we're going to be sponsoring, you can see what bills are in the works. And, these are things that didn't happen before. We find out after the fact. Then all of a sudden we all know. So I think that's a really good program. I think we need that type of transparency to know, if we're going to be sending, let's say, $100 million to Uganda, I would really like to know why. I would like our government to put something out there. I can go on there, take my own time and say, okay, well, my tax dollars are going to Uganda because we're sending that money over there to dig wells, for people who don't have fresh water. I would be perfectly fine with that. I would be perfectly fine with that. Or if they said, oh, well, we're sending $500,000 to Indonesia to teach women how to play cricket. And that's a real thing that we really did under Obama. And I would be like, no, 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 no. My money is not to teach women how to play cricket in Indonesia. Don't care about the women in Indonesia learning how to play cricket. So those are things we really need to think about. And Mary says it was the late 90s, and my friend used it as the highway in California. Yeah, and I mean, people drive through in and out of those highways all the time. And, some people have problems and some don't, but there are big signs everywhere on those highways that say, do not pick up hitchhikers. Do not stop your vehicle. Do not get out of your vehicle, because if you do, you could potentially become a victim. A lot of these highways, they find, people hanging on the billboards and dead on the side of the roads. It's a pretty crazy situation that's happening here in the United States. And Jay says, imagine the improvements in our country if we invest here. Yeah, Stellantis, this is something else Donald Trump is doing. Stellantis, of course, Stellantis is an automotive group, and they produce, I know, engines for Jeeps. They do a lot of different things. And so Stellantis has stated, and I think Stellantis has not been doing well. They had layoffs. They made far too many Jeep engines. People just aren't paying, $95,000 for a Jeep right now. So they were talking about, laying off several, I think either 500 to 1,000 people. Well, now they're saying under Donald Trump, guess what? They're bringing 1,500 jobs back to the United States, back to our country. And so if you are a fan of the Dodge Durango, Stellantis is going to start making the Dodge Durango. They're going to be working on the Dodge Durango right here in the United States. So, that's a fantastic, fantastic accomplishment to know that Donald Trump is already bringing work back into the country, bringing manufacturing back into the country. That's going to take place in Detroit. And Stellantis said, you know what, we're going to start investing in other areas too. Indiana, Ohio. Of course, they make the Jeep Wrangler in Ohio, which is, of course, my favorite vehicle. So that's something I think that's very interesting. Before we get too far, though, I want to play that video of Barron, because we talked about it so much yesterday, where Barron comes up to Joe Biden and he says something in his ear. And when he does, this look on Biden's face, is priceless. And then you see Barron kind of turn around. Now, when I first start this, I got to hurry up and turn the sound off because there's people talking over it. There's music, and I don't want any of that to interfere. Sometimes if there's music on in the background, it will get me kicked off the show. So bear with me for just a moment.
Sometimes the more you fuck around.
Sorry, I got to turn that off. I'm going to play it a couple times. Now you see Barron come over to Biden here, and he's going to lean over and say something. And look, Biden's like, what? You can tell he's like, what did Barron? That's the funniest look on Barron's face. Like I said, I'm going to play it a couple times. So you guys, I watched this several times. We don't know what he said. There's a lot of people who are guessing what he said, but we don't know. Look at Biden's face. He's taking it in. Barron, one more time. He comes over. But I love the look on Barron's face and the look on Biden's face. Biden's like, what? Do you enjoy that as much as I do? I think that is absolutely hilarious. And I we don't know what Barron said. Some people have said, well, he leaned over and he said, "You didn't pardon yourself." That's what a lip reader said that he stated to Biden. We don't know. We can only speculate what he said. But whatever it was, Biden was just like, "What? I can't believe he said that," or really taking it all in. Then Barron, I just love the look on his face. And Joe says Barron looks like a bigger, stronger, faster, better version of his dad. Yeah, and like I said yesterday, and like Tara pointed out, also Biden, Barron is only 18 years old, so he's got a long way to go. But I do think that he will be our president someday if things continue to track the way they're tracking. Speaking of Barron, I heard yesterday he's going to open a luxury real estate company, and following after his family's footsteps in real estate, of course. If there's anything he knows, it is certainly going to be real estate. Pam, I know the faces, it's priceless, isn't it? Dottie says either 2 words or 2 syllables. Yeah, it was something that he said that was quick, and it wasn't a lot of words or a lot of talking. And so it might make sense that he said you didn't pardon yourself. It might make sense. A lot of things could make sense. He might have said you're going to prison, or honestly, who knows? He could have called him pedo Peter. If it would have been me and I would have been in that position, I would have leaned over and I would have said, "Hey, big guy, pedo Peter." That would have been what I said. But everybody's got their thing. I thought that was so interesting. And I kid you not, I probably watched it like 20 times trying to figure out what was said and just looking at the looks on their faces, because it is absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. I promised Joe at some point later today, Joe, the guitar guy, that I'm going to talk about crypto. I'll do that towards the end of the show. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. We'll talk about it again. JD Vance, I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to see this video, but we have a video of JD Vance seeing the Oval Office for the first time. Can you imagine being JD Vance, just elected the vice president of the United States? You have never been in the Oval Office, and this is your first look. And Jay says he didn't need to pardon himself with the cognitive decline. He won't be prosecuted. I don't know about that, Jay. I wouldn't be so quick to say he won't be prosecuted just because of his age. I think that he's done enough to Trump and Trump's family that they would push for his prosecution. So take a look at this video of JD Vance.
Margo? Hey, Margo. Good to see you. Good to see you too. Wow.
This is JD Vance's first time to step into the Oval Office.
Wow.
It's incredible.
This is incredible.
Isn't that something? I can't even imagine what it would feel like to, walk into that Oval Office for the first time and know that this is where he's going to be for the next 4 years, or potentially longer. This could be a very long career for JD Vance. He could eventually also be our president. We don't know what's hanging in the balance, what's going to happen next, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. As a matter of fact, speaking of not knowing what's going to happen, yesterday there was a lot of talk that Trump was going to release the John F. Kennedy files, and it didn't happen. They said, it's going to be by 3:00 yesterday. And I kept looking. And now, unless you guys saw something that I didn't see, I never saw anything happening. And then I haven't heard anything more about it. So I don't know when that's going to happen or how it's going to happen, but it will eventually happen. And I don't know. I don't personally feel like there's going to be anything in those JFK files that's going to be surprising to anyone. I think we already have an idea of what happened. I would be surprised if those documents still are part of the files, because obviously we know the Democrat regime, they cover their tracks pretty darn well. And just because it happened, just because the CIA maybe put a plan in place, doesn't necessarily mean they kept the paperwork or any type of paper trail. So I don't know that we'll really ever know what happened with validation to John Kennedy. I really don't know. but I will be interested to see either time. And Pam says his story is amazing. I still have not seen all of the movie of JD Vance. I can't even remember what it's called right now. You guys, Country something. You guys probably did see it and probably know Country Effigy or something like that. And I'm going to go back one of these days and watch the whole movie. I just haven't had time. And Joe says JD could totally run the next time. He absolutely could. We could get another 8 years of utopia through JD Vance. It could certainly happen. And Dottie says, I noticed Trump's posture walking hunched over and JD appeared taller. Yeah, JD's a big guy. And Jay says it won't matter. There will be people who won't believe it either way. You are right. And Kim said yes, but curiosity killed the cat. Also true. Also true. And JD, your comment, hillbilly elegy. Thank you so much, Mary. Hillbilly elegy. I knew it had something to do with country. Thank you for that. And something to do with elegy. People, Jay, you're right. People won't believe it either way. That's the same thing with alien technology or extraterrestrial life or UFOs. The government could flat out come out and tell you, yes, if you listen to the hearings, the UAP hearings, they actually do come out and tell you. If you go out and listen to the David Grush interview, you know everything there is to know about alien technology, UFOs, and extraterrestrial life. They've already told us. We already know. And then I had this argument with somebody online a couple weeks ago where they're like, oh, the government has never told us that alien life exists. I'm like, who do you consider to be the government? Like, who is it that has to tell you that alien life exists for you to believe it? Because the government has told us. David Grush worked for our government. He essentially is the government, but became a whistleblower. And he told us he worked in these programs. He was there. He saw it. He knew it. He talked to people. He interviewed people. This guy was in the mix of everything. And he's already told us he came forward as a whistleblower, David Grush. And he has an interview out there. It's about an hour, hour and a half long. And I always encourage people to watch it. And then people will argue with me. No. I'm like, okay, well, who does it take for you to believe it? Does Donald Trump have to do a big network broadcast and say, it's true, Americans, UFOs exist, aliens exist, alien technology exists? Well, then will you believe it? Probably not. There will still be people who just won't believe it. People have a hard time wrapping their heads around things that are incredulous to believe. And I get it. I'm not one of those people, but I do get it. And it would be the same thing with John Kennedy. It would be the same thing with a lot of these different things that people are telling us, even the Epstein client list, even the Diddy list, which are all of this information is going to eventually be released to us. But I'll tell you, there will still be people who will say, oh, I wish I knew who was on that list. Okay, well, here is the list. Kash Patel gave it to us. Here's the list. Oh, no, this person would never do that, But this person over here who's not on the list, I know they're on the list. And people are never going to believe it. And they're never going to be able to wrap their head around some of this stuff. And I'll tell you, there's going to be a lot of fallout when those two lists are released. The thing with John Kennedy, I think we want to know because we want the validation that we always knew something was going on. We just didn't know what exactly took place. We want that validation. I don't know if that's validation we're ever going to get. And Allison said, the drone information he said would be released. Allison, I'm very confused about the drone information because do you remember not long ago, Donald Trump gave that statement where he said that he canceled his plans at his Bedminster, New Jersey home. And he said that, they need to tell you what's going on. And gee, I'm not going to my Bedminster home. I'm canceling my plans. I'm not going there. Well, I assumed that because he said that he knows that he has been briefed as the incoming president. This is what's going on with the drones. And then it led me to believe when he said, okay, well, he's not going to his Bedminster home because of the drones, because of what he knows, the knowledge that he has, that has made him make this decision not to go. Well, now I don't know. I'm not so sure in that thinking now I'm thinking, well, maybe he doesn't know because his statement when asked again about the drones, I can't recall who his press secretary, what her name is, Susie, somebody named Susie. I don't know who Susie is, but his statement was, as he kind of looked behind him, he said, Susie, whoever Susie might be, Susie, can you find out the information? try to get a briefing on these drones so we can tell the American people what's going on with the drones. So does he know or does he not know? I thought he did, but maybe he doesn't. I'm not sure. Allison says in the press conference, he told his chief of staff to get him info on the drone. And maybe that's who Susie is, because I know he turned around and said Susie. But it makes me wonder, Allison, does he know about the drones or does he not know about the drones? Now I'm kind of leaning to maybe he doesn't. But what's interesting about the drones, I still, and now I know why so many people were saying that these were Chinese drones that came from a submarine. Now I know where that story came from. And I was going to bring this up yesterday, but we were pretty busy yesterday on the show. But everybody was saying, remember, oh, the drones are coming from a submarine. First they said Iranian mothership. Then they said, oh, it's from a Chinese submarine is releasing these drones. Well, what's fascinating is just yesterday I read a report that China has unveiled its new submarine that, guess what, releases drones. But the drones don't look like the drones that we're seeing. But what's fascinating about this submarine is that it's not at all what I pictured. I pictured a submarine, excuse me, a submarine coming up to the surface of the water and, drones being launched from the submarine. But in this case, China has announced that their submarine is underwater. It can be a couple hundred feet underwater. And these drones have the capability of swimming through the water, making their way through the water. And then once they emerge from the water, their flaps open and then they're able to fly. So I can understand now why everyone said these are Chinese drones coming from a submarine, because our government, some people in our government would have already had that knowledge that China was working on this type of program. I still have a hard time wrapping my head around that fact that it was Chinese drones. And the reason why is because the drones have been seen all over the world, all over the United States. They're still being seen. That, this situation has not resolved at all. And as a matter of fact, someone I know just saw an orb the other day. And now the orbs, of course, and the drones are different things. People are still seeing the spheres. Now, some people think the sphere and the drone are the same thing, that the sphere travels as a sphere, and then it opens during the day, and then at nighttime, right, or around dark time, it opens up into what looks like a fixed wing aircraft. There are people who have videos of it. I've seen the videos of what looks like a metallic sphere opening up and turning into what looks like a fixed wing drone. Now, that's not what China drones do. They don't start out as a sphere and then open up. The drone looks like a drone. It's just its little tail area is closed. And then when it enters the airspace, it opens. But they still don't look like the drones people are seeing. But people are still seeing the drones. And the orbs are a whole different story. I still think the orbs are plasmoids. And we're not going to get into all that today, what a plasmoid is. But I will tell you, it is still strange. And we, again, are fickle society where we go from one thing to the next to the next. People aren't talking about the drones anymore. They're not talking about the orbs anymore, but people are still seeing them. I'm still seeing the reports. I'm still seeing the videos. I'm still sharing all that to the Tabs on Tap Facebook page, because there is just so much information, so many videos, and so many photos out there of these drones and of these orbs. There is still something going on. What that something is, I do not know, but there is still something going on. I should have talked about this earlier, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit, and then I'll move on to something else. But we were talking earlier about, of course, about illegals and the deportations that are underway. And, when people come into our country illegally or legally, however they enter our country, they are met with a resettlement coordinator. I don't know if you guys heard this story on the news, but in Michigan, there was an Afghan who came into our country. Now, this person, as far as I understand, came in legally. They are not a citizen, but they were legally resettled into our country. Well, this guy, this Afghan, he tracked down his resettlement coordinator to this guy's home and tried to murder him. He broke into his home, stabbed him several times. The man did survive. It was in surgery this morning, last I read about the story, and he is expected to survive, but he was stabbed multiple times. So when you come into this country, legally or illegally, you can be met with a resettlement coordinator. The resettlement coordinator comes out. They talk to you about voting. this is who you vote for. Of course, they're going to put you towards Democrats. They're going to settle you in, make sure you're assimilating to your community. They're going to make sure you have food and you have housing and you have, health care. They do all of these different things. They pay visits to you on a regular basis to make sure you're, going through the assimilation process okay. And this was a really crazy story that happened. And again, this guy in Michigan, a resettlement coordinator. Now, why this Afghan man tracked this resettlement coordinator down and stalked him, went to his home and tried to murder him, no one really knows. So I hope we get some more information about that. And what's funny is most of the time Democrats, they try to say there's no such thing as a resettlement coordinator. And yes, there is. And we've been talking about them for a very long time, at least on this show. So it's kind of interesting to see the news that yes, resettlement coordinators absolutely do exist. And for whatever reason, this person was attacked. Before we get too far, I know there's still a lot I want to cover today because I keep spending a lot of time on things. I wanted to just touch base on weather modification while we're talking about a lot of these other things. And they want to tell us, oh, weather modification doesn't exist. It doesn't happen. It's kind of interesting, but Vice News released a video, and I'm going to play the video. Now, there's a longer video of this. I'm going to play the shortened video about weather modification because I really do think that under Donald Trump, we're going to see more transparency when it comes to the weather. And how can you not look around at the weather and think something strange is going on? I don't know what it is, but something strange is going on. And the reason why is because here I am sitting and there's still snow, still 2-3 inches of snow in my yard. I've been in Missouri for since I was 16 years old. I don't recall snow and this cold weather lasting that long. It's not unusual. I'm not saying that's necessarily weather modification. Now we have 10 inches of snow in parts of Florida, Alabama, New Orleans, in these areas. And then we have of course, more wildfires that just started in California. And by the way, Donald Trump visited North Carolina and the LA area. North Carolina, he acted very swiftly. He had apartments arranged. So the folks in North Carolina, if they were living in a tent or in a shed, some of the people, of course, camping out after losing their home in these very cold temperatures, all of those people have been moved to housed, fully furnished. They've been housed in these apartments. So that is some good news. California, on the other hand, Donald Trump said, yes, we will help you, but we're not helping you until your state helps you. Your state needs to help you first. Governor Newsom needs to let the water flow from the north to the south. And then I will, pop in and make sure we offer, additional aid to the people of these, victims of these wildfires. And according to Donald Trump, the reason why the state of California has not allowed this water to flow, which would have made a huge dent in these fires, is because of an endangered fish species. And I was going to play the video for you, but we'll do that another time if we deem it to be necessary. Let's see. Mary says, going to be 50 next week. Hold on, man. Mary, I can't wait. Good morning, Jay Van Brown. A bunch of Afghan refugees were brought in through Camp Atterbury here in Indiana, a training grounds for Indiana Army National Guard. Not surprising because, this is no longer going to happen. But what the plan was underway already with the Biden administration, where they were going to have illegals join our police forces. It did happen in Chicago. They were going to have them join border control and they were going to have them sign up to be reservists. So those plans are no longer going to be in place, but that could be why they brought them very near to your training grounds for the Army National Guard. So I'm going to play this quick video on weather modification because they always want to say it doesn't exist, don't they?
How do you make
but
it
we know
rain?
it does.
There's
We're not
two different
stupid.
kinds
Let's
of
see.
cloud seeding.
This is very
Glaciogenic and hygroscopic. Glaciogenic, glacier, right? It relies on freezing liquid in the cloud into heavy enough snowflakes so that they become heavy enough to precipitate. So you'll, with radar or other probes, measure how much water's in the cloud. If you have water that's around like 0 degrees Celsius or below, you can fly a drone up into it, spray this fairy dust that I told you about, silver iodide. That chemical, its crystal structure is almost identical to ice, so water freezes onto it very favorably, grows into those big heavy snowflakes, then precipitates either as snow or, if it's warm beneath the cloud, as rain.
Oh, gee, what? Weather modification? Are you saying that weather modification exists? Because we've always been told that it doesn't exist, right? We've always been told there's no such thing. We know there is, we know there is. And this won't be validation to anyone but us. And we've heard these types of videos before, and I hope that Donald Trump moving forward, that they're very transparent about HART programs and CERN and weather modification. I know Trump's doing away with the big windmills because they are more of a burden than they are a help, to our system. So that's a positive thing. They end up in these landmines, which is a huge disaster that we don't need to continue to deal with. And I'm trying to think of anything else I was planning on going over. I know Chat GPT has been down today, OpenAI down, which people say they don't really know why. It could be because of Stargate. We talked a little bit about Stargate yesterday. Of course, Stargate being these AI data centers that are going to be set up all across the country. It's going to be AI. Let's see here. OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank are going to collaborate with this Stargate. And, as I said yesterday, I'm not going to get into it a lot today. I think it's a fantastic idea. Trump, of course, creating an Iron Dome for us here in the United States, similar to what they have over in Israel. And the Iron Dome will collaborate with Stargate to make sure that we have security because we face, incoming threats all the time. And that'll give us a little more peace, a little bit more. I think we'll feel a lot better having an Iron Dome type system. And, and the same for Stargate. Like I said yesterday, we got to catch up to the times. The times are AI, whether we want it or we don't want it. I'm sure back in the day, people didn't want computers. When the first Apple computer came out, people were probably like, no, no, no. And they were probably right. But here we are. Now we have cell phones, a little data bank we carry with us everywhere we go, and which has its goods, good points and its bad points. But we have to continue to progress, and because if we don't, we're just going to be left behind, and we've already been left behind on many fronts under the Biden administration where they didn't fund these programs. And let's see here. Allison says, you have seen the pictures of the chemtrails over our property frequently. You've been documenting it for years. I don't see as many chemtrails out here in my area, but I do see them on occasion. And the thing that I've noticed, and I'm sure you guys have all noticed too, every time you see that crisscross pattern or you see these chemtrails, it's always in the path of the sun. And it's very clear that most of the time that these chemtrails are about blocking the sun. And of course, our buddy Billy Gates is probably behind a lot of it. He met with Donald Trump recently, of course. And so we'll see where that partnership might lead. Hopefully they talk, and Trump probably hopefully pulled him in a corner and said, hey, quit modifying the mosquitoes. Quit messing with Mother Nature. Let the sun shine, because gosh knows we need some sunshine. I could use some sunshine today, that's for sure. I don't really think there's a whole lot more to talk about. I wanted to talk about AI a little. I mean, AI, I already talked about AI. I want to talk a little bit about crypto just because Guitar Joe wanted to talk about it. I'm not even sure if he's listening today. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but we talked about it a little bit yesterday. And we'll talk a little bit more about some other things tomorrow. There's a lot going on, a lot of things to talk about. Every day there's new news because we're dealing with, as Trump signs executive orders, as people are nominated, these nominations go through or maybe rejected, we're going to find out more. Again, I'm looking forward to RFK's nomination coming up on January 29th, because that's going to change a lot of things. He's probably my favorite of all the nominations. It's going to be RFK Jr., because he's going to come in and he's going to make sure these food dyes are removed from our food. There's going to be a lot of chemicals and additives that are going to be removed from our food. They haven't even tackled GMOs yet. I can't wait to hear what they have to say about GMOs, because as we continue talking about gardening, we're going to talk more about GMOs, because, GMOs, the reason why we have GMO food, genetically modified food, is because at some point down the line, when population continued to expand, the government said, hey, we need to figure out a way to feed all these people so we don't end up in a famine or some other, terrible situation where we don't have enough food. So they genetically modified a lot of these crops to grow more consistent yields, to produce more food. I always use the green pepper as an example because it's the one that's more obvious. So, they genetically modified, let's say, the green pepper, well, to make sure that it was more disease resistant, that it produced a higher crop. But when you go to the grocery store and you look at this big, beautiful stack of green peppers, what do you notice? They all mostly look the same, don't they? They all mostly look the same. They don't even look, they look like little plastic green peppers. And naturally occurring food, if you grow green peppers in your garden, they don't all come out looking the same like that. They just don't. And, that's just not natural. And if you try to take some of those GMO seeds and plant them in your garden, a lot of times, if not most of the times, they don't grow because they were genetically modified so that you can't reproduce them. They don't want you to, they consider that a patent. They have patented our food and they don't want you to be able to grow that at home. And they wanted that. And that's also more about the farmers than it is you. The farmers have to repurchase the GMO seeds every single growing season. They don't want them to be able to harvest their own seeds and plant again. They have to buy them. And Dottie says GMOs are pest resistant. Not only are they pest resistant, but they're also animal altogether resistant. I have done so many experiments myself. I'll do more when it gets warmer out, where I will take GMO foods and natural foods that I grow myself and put them out on the patio where there's a lot of ants and different things, bug activity. And I'll tell you what, nothing touches the GMO food. If ants will not eat your green pepper or your genetically modified blueberries, you shouldn't be eating it either. And they, yes, we may have more of a food, so more people are being fed, but they took the nutritional value out. And they put in, genetics, they changed the genetics of the food where it's not food anymore. And that's really what it is. When these ants, I put out blueberries. I think I've told you guys this story before. I put out 2 grocery store blueberries, and then I put 2 of my homegrown blueberries on the patio, and right on top of an anthill, by the way. And I went out and checked it the next day. Well, the next day, the 2 blueberries that were from the grocery store were still there, completely untouched. And I cut each one of them in half, by the way. And then the 2 blueberries I placed there that were from my own garden, guess what? They were gone. And ants will not eat the blueberries, not necessarily because it has chemicals or things on it, because they don't recognize it as food. It doesn't have any nutritional value. They took the nutritional value out to produce more food. And you can tell me I'm wrong, and that's perfectly fine because I know exactly what they did. And as a matter of fact, back on one of my old shows on Cancel This, we interviewed a guy from Montana, and that's exactly what he told us. That foods were genetically modified to produce higher yields, but in doing so, you lose a lot of the nutritional value, and it's highly unfortunate. Mary says, I need to watch Forks Over Knives again. Yeah, I've watched that a couple of times, and it's always good to watch. And Jay says Monsanto is the worst, and prosecute. You'll try to replant seeds. Oh, they'll prosecute you if you try to replant the seeds. Yes, they will. And farmers really have it tough right now when it comes to GMOs. But all that's going to change. Trust me, all of that is going to change. Now, before I head out, I started a little bit late, so it's okay if I run a little bit over. I do want to jump into crypto just because yesterday I said I would talk about it, and we'll probably be talking about it more because, as you know, Donald Trump is very much into cryptocurrency. And, maybe that's just his influence from Barron. Maybe it's influence from Elon Musk. Maybe it's just his own, knowledge that cryptocurrency is a big part of our future. Will it replace the dollar? I don't know. I don't really expect that to happen. If I had to guess, I would think that our dollar is going to be backed by gold at some point down the line, gold and silver possibly. But I don't think that crypto anytime soon is going to replace our currency. Now, there's a lot of places. Who is it? JetBlue. They're going to start taking crypto now in payments. I just read that yesterday. And we're going to see a lot more of that. And I know that Donald Trump is going to build up cryptocurrency. He has an entire cryptocurrency division within our government that he started. He's going to promote a lot of different types of coins that are out there. I'm not going to get into the blockchain and what the blockchain is and all of that different type of thing because, that's just far above my knowledge level. I've always had a hard time understanding the blockchain and how crypto is made and that type of thing. So I'm not even going to get into all that. But I have been buying crypto for many years now. Some good, some bad. I've certainly had my losses, no question about it. I have a lot of Dogecoin that I purchased a long time ago. I made a lot of money on Dogecoin. And every time I made money on Dogecoin, I would take a little bit of it and buy other crypto. So I don't have as much Doge as I at one time did, because I did sell some of it to buy other crypto, but Doge continues to rise. And some of these other ones do also. But if I were just starting out today, and let's say I had no crypto, what would I do? The first thing I would do is I would go out and find a wallet. And in this case, I use Atomic Wallet. It's an app like any other app. Your wallet is where you store all of your crypto, and that's your safe house. It's like like the bank for crypto, or like if you had a safe at your home, that your wallet is your safe for your crypto. In my case, I use Atomic Wallet. It was suggested to me. I like it. I've never had any issues, no complaints about it. And then when you set up, let's say you go online today and you set up your wallet in Atomic Wallet, or you choose another wallet, what you're going to do is make sure, don't make the same mistake I did many years ago when I bought Bitcoin. Don't do that, because trust me, if you make the same mistake I did, you're going to regret it as much as I do. They give you a key code. It's very long. It's a very long string of letters and numbers. Take a photo of it, write it down, save it if you can in many different places to make sure you never lose that key or never forget that key. Because if you don't have that key, you're not getting back in. So make sure you hold on to that, because your crypto will be lost forever if you forget that key. So number one is figure out what type of wallet you're going to use. Download your wallet, set up your account, write your key down, take a photo of your key, whatever it is you have to do. Back in the day when I bought all that Bitcoin, I'm pretty sure it was in 2006, 2005, 2006, somewhere in that range. It could have been earlier than that. I don't recall. But when I bought that, I wrote the key down. Back then we didn't have, cell phones to take pictures with. And so I wrote the key down in a notebook, and I thought, oh, I'll have this notebook forever. Well, I don't have the faintest clue where that notebook is. I don't know where my key is. I don't have a way to get into my account. And I, of course, don't remember my password or my email address after all those years, because back then Bitcoin wasn't a big deal like it is now. And so make sure that you safeguard your account. That's number one. Now, the second thing you need to do is find an exchange. I use Uphold. There's a lot of exchanges out there you can use. There's, let me think. I was just on Genesis the other day. I used to use KuCoin. I don't use them anymore. I used Voyager and learned a very serious lesson with Voyager. If you buy crypto on an exchange, don't leave it in the exchange. It's going to cost you, but transfer it to your wallet. So let's say you create your exchange. Just for example, you decide to use Uphold, and there's a lot of exchanges out there. Uphold right now is my favorite. So let's say you create an Uphold account. You're going to purchase your crypto in Uphold. They will ask you for your identifying information, your name, your address, everything else. Be honest, give them your real name, make sure it's spelled correctly. They're going to ask you to upload your identification. You can't get around that, unfortunately. You have to upload your identification. You're going to have to give them access to your money. Now, there's a lot of different ways people do this, and I haven't done this in a while. I trust the system a little bit more than what I used to. Crew said, do not ever mention Voyager again. I know. Crew, if I were ever to be a person who would want to harm someone, it would be the folks over at Voyager. And it's very upsetting to me too. I lost a lot of money when Voyager went down. But important lesson learned: don't hold your money in your exchange. So let's say you go in, you download your ID, you need to pay them. You have to fund your exchange in order to buy crypto. So let's just say you don't trust the system. You can go and purchase, let's say, a store debit card. You can go to the store and buy those debit cards. I don't know. I've seen some that say vanilla on them or different things, a prepaid debit card. You can use those to buy your crypto. So you can load money onto that card, and then or you can use your own bank account. You can do a bank transfer. You can use a debit card, whatever you want to do to get your money funded into your account. So let's just say, as an example, what I do is every week I fund my crypto account with $50. And so I'll take that $50, and this is on my exchange, on the exchange, and I will purchase a little bit, in my case, of different types of crypto. Now, you might want to buy all of one crypto. You might want to buy a little bit of everything. Some exchanges have minimum limits. Some of them say you have to at least spend $5, to buy crypto, or $10 or $20. All the exchanges have different limits. And so therefore, most of them are, $5 or $10. Most of them aren't that high. So let's say you load $50 onto your exchange, onto Uphold. Well, then your money is there. You go through, you look at the market, just like you would the stocks. There's all of these different coins. And you look at all these different coins and decide, what do you want to buy? Maybe you're looking for something that's the best investment for the future. Or maybe, like me, you just want a little bit of everything because you never know what crypto is going to take off. There's the bigger ones, which we'll get into, but even some of the smaller ones I've done really well on, because when something first comes out, let's say I'll just throw $10 on it, and maybe it'll make it, maybe it won't. It's when crypto first comes out, it might be 0.00002 cents. You can buy $20 worth, and you're going to end up with a lot of crypto for that particular coin. And that's the way to do it, is to buy it early when it's really low. If you can catch something on the first day it's released before anyone starts buying it, you're going to get a lot of it at a really low price. And so that's what I try to do. Now, if you really get into it, you're going to be waking up in the middle of the night being like, oh my gosh, I need to hurry up and buy this before it starts going up. Then you can watch it go up to a penny and 5 cents and so on. Like some of us back when we all bought Dogecoin, I remember waking up, I don't know how many different times a night to see how much it was going up. It was crazy. And so you choose what kind of coins you want. Now, once you've chosen your coins and you purchase those coins and you put them on the exchange, you're going to have to put them in your wallet. Now, if you're only buying a little bit, it's probably better to leave it on the exchange until you have more, because you are charged a transaction fee. So let's say you want to take you purchase, let's say, 200 coins of XRP, or you put $200 into XRP, however you do it. And you want to move that from Uphold, your exchange, to Atomic Wallet, which is your holding place, your bank, your vault. It's going to cost you a transaction fee. And these exchanges, they charge different fees. It's usually not that much. Usually, $1, a couple dollars. But if you've only bought, $5 of, let's say, Tron, do you really want to spend $2 to, switch it over to your platform, or can you handle losing $5 if the platform goes down? Small things I just leave in the exchange. Now, if I go through, let's say, that week and I spend my entire $50 on XLM, well, then I'm going to take my XLM and I'm going to transfer it over into my Atomic Wallet for safekeeping. And everything just sits in my Atomic Wallet for safekeeping. I don't mess with it. I don't touch it. Just like stocks, you just leave it there. And now some people want to, buy and sell. That gets into a tricky game. A lot of people have lost a lot of money buying and selling. What a lot of people do is, when a crypto goes low, they buy it. And then when it goes high, they sell it. They might, they get their profit, whatever that might be. Then they wait for it to go low again. Then they buy it low. When it goes up, they sell it. And it's a continuous roller coaster of buying and selling. And there was a time period when I did some of that. And then I found it's way, A, too time consuming. B, unless you're really putting a lot of money on something in those lows and you sell them in the high, you're not really making that much money. So I don't know, how exactly effective that is. Now, as far as cryptos, I didn't realize what time it is. I better get a move on it. As far as cryptos, Pam says, how many cryptos are there? Thousands. There are thousands of different types of coins. Do your research. Go out and, I use Uphold. Not every coin is available on Uphold. Sometimes I use multiple exchanges. I used to use KuCoin, KUKU coin, because every type of crypto is out there. So you can buy anything on some of these exchanges, and then you can also still move them to your wallet. I don't trust some of those exchanges enough. Some people use Pancake. They say if you go to this exchange called Pancake, they have more options. So do your research to figure out which exchange you want to use. Multiple exchanges, and have your one safe place, your vault for your crypto. Now, for me personally, again, I take my $50 each week and I spend the bulk of it on XLM and XRP. And I always put a little bit into Bitcoin, and to me, whether it's high or low, I don't care. I might look at it and the price is up for today. I'm still going to put my couple dollars in just to be done with it. And, some people might want to wait until it's lower before you buy in. The small amounts I'm putting in, it doesn't really matter too much on the price fluctuations, but I always put a little in Bitcoin. But the bulk of what I buy is XRP and XLM. I think those two have the highest possibility of growing exponentially in the coming years. But I also put a little bit into other ones. If there's a new coin out there, I'll throw $10 into that coin, or $5. Typically you have to at least do $5. So I'll just kind of do that. At one point when I was on that terrible Voyager that Crew doesn't want to talk about, man, I was buying everything. There were some coins I had over 1 million of, and you joke like I'm a BTT millionaire, and at some point, if those cryptos grow, obviously you're going to make a lot of money, which is how people of course, with Bitcoin ended up becoming from buying. I am technically a Bitcoin millionaire. I just don't have access to my account. Maybe someday I'll figure out how to break into my Bitcoin account. But that's why it's so important for you to write down those keys so that you always know if you lose your password, if something is not working with the logging in and logging out, you have your key. Now, some people use two-factor identification. I stopped doing. My brain is too boggled. I can't remember all that stuff. So I don't use the two-factor, but you probably should if you can. But yeah, XLM, XRP right now are my two top choices, but there are so many of them. And I'm way over my time, so I'm not going to be able to talk about too much more. But anytime you can always message me, I'd be happy to give you my advice. And we'll be talking about crypto more. I'm planning on having a weekly crypto segment, as I continue to break the show down and start segmentizing things, because crypto, I think, is growing. Donald Trump's going to put a lot of focus on crypto, and I think it's something we're going to have to explore a little bit more. And we're going to have some different experts come on and talk about it. We're going to talk about what the hottest cryptos are, what's coming out. There's a lot of Telegram channels you can find. Wall Street, I think it's Wall Street Beats, I'm pretty sure is the bigger one. I don't follow any of those anymore because there's a lot of scams on there and I got tired of looking at the scams. But so those are some of the things to look at. Establish your wallet, find your exchange platforms or multiple exchange platforms, secure, make sure your money is secure, that you don't give your money information out to an exchange that you're not familiar with. It's not been proven to be a good exchange. There's unfortunately a lot of scams out in the crypto world. My advice is don't put too much money into anything. Slowly make your way in and see how it goes. First, Dogecoin, I still buy Dogecoin because I know that's a pet project of Elon Musk. I think he's going to continue to make sure Doge goes up. I bought Doge when it was 0.000 many zeros 6 cents way back in the day. Now look, it's up. It's been up to 47 cents, maybe even higher at some point. I don't watch them as much as I used to. I think of them like stocks. You put them away in your vault, and then you just let them be. Let them be. And we'll talk about staking another day. There's a way to stake your crypto so that you can make money just like a bank would, kind of like interest. So we'll talk about that another time. Well, that's it for me today. Unfortunately, the time limit has gotten me and I need to make a run for it. But we will talk more about all of these issues at another time. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk a little bit more about gardening. I've got some, I'm going through this weekly planner, which is how I'm going to be gardening, where each week I'm going to know what I need to be doing. And that's how I'm going to keep my gardening organized. So I'm going to share, those weekly tips with you. They don't come from me. They come from the experts because I am far from a gardening expert. I'm kind of in the beginning learning stages, but at least we'll all be on the same track that, hey, this is what we should be doing this week. These are what we should be getting ready for. This is what we should be planting, or this is how the seeds we need to be starting this week based on the, of course, the first frost in your area. So we're going to get into all that, but I do appreciate all of your time. And let's see here. And Pam, Crypto for Dummies. Well, first of all, you guys are not dummies. And there's a lot to learn about crypto. I certainly don't know it all, but I've been buying it for a very long time. Well, I do hope you guys all have a really good day. I will be back tomorrow. I'm not sure what we're going to be talking about yet because there's going to be a lot of news that takes place today and tonight as these ICE raids continue, as Donald Trump continues to introduce new policy. Lots taking place. So we'll talk to you all tomorrow. I hope you guys all have a really great day, and we'll see you then. And again, I'm Tabitha.